Hello everyone. So today we will be continuing with the module 5 servlets and JSPs. So in the previous class we have basically seen the fundamental web architecture of the servlets. Okay, and we have seen how to basically write a basic hello world program in servlets, the life cycle of the servlet, and what are the basic types of servlet supports which we are having, namely two. One is generic servlet and the other one is the HTTP servlet. Based on this, we have learned the concept of the life cycle. If you recollect, the life cycle consists of init, service, and destroy. Now, based upon whether your HTTP GET call or is it a post call, we will basically support do GET or do post methods inside your servlet. Now, to enable all this, we have javax.servlet package. In that, we have specifically generic servlet and HTTP servlet, which is available. So, we will continue today with learning more into the details about the servlet programming. We will see how a typical form is basically constructed and how the values from this form can be basically sent to the server, how the server can basically process these values and give a response based upon the business logic that is written. So, if I tell you a use case, the use case can be thought about. For example, you are doing a registration process. So, when you open the form, you will basically see a typical HTML form where you have the options to give the name. Okay, you maybe the details like email ID. Okay, and then maybe age, and followed by you will have some option to give the password. When you press the submit button, all these values should be basically packed inside an HTTP request packet and sent to the server. Now it's the responsibility of the servlet to basically open up and take out all the values from these parameters and perform some business logic, which can be connecting to a database or basically converting this particular data in a required format and then giving back a adequate response. So let's understand how this can be basically achieved, where a request is sent from the client to the server and a response is sent back from the server to the client. So in the previous class, we have basically studied all the APIs that we require to perform the servlet programming are available inside the javax.servlet, and to be more specific with HTTP, you have a sub package called as javax.servlet.http package. Now, the generic servlet basically provides the basic lifecycle methods for a servlet. It implements the servlet and the servlet config interfaces. So in yesterday's class, we have seen what is meant by servlet config and context, and request, as we know, is reading the data from the client request, and response is writing the data back to the client response. So today we will basically see the servlet request interface. It enables the servlet to obtain the information about a client request. I repeat, the servlet request interface enables a servlet to obtain the information about a client request. In order to do this, there are certain methods which are available inside the servlet request interface. So if you see the methods which are basically available here, includes very important method called as get parameter. So if you have a parameter, say name, in your form that is inside the HTML, so you can specify the name of that particular element and it returns the corresponding value of the parameter which is given. For example, let us assume that in the form we have an option called as college name. So if the college name is a label, in the text box, if I type New Horizon College of Engineering and press the submit button, and then this particular value can be retrieved at the server side using the method called as get parameter. If you give get parameter followed by the name of that particular parameter, which is college name, the response, which is New Horizon College of Engineering, will be returned by this particular method. So the servlet request method get parameter is the most important and the most common method which is required and rapidly used during the servlet programming. Yet another method name is get parameters name. So if I have a form where the first parameter is the college name, the second parameter is the department name, and the third parameter is the faculty name. If I want to get the names of all the parameters, I repeat the names, not the values. The names of all the parameters, I can call the method called as get parameter names. It returns an enumeration of all the parameter names for this particular request. So as we see that enumeration is used for collecting the cumulative data together, where you can then basically retrieve the elements one by one by using the APIs which are supported by the enum data type. The last and the most important method which is present inside the servlet request is get parameter values. So it typically happens that is, suppose if you have a checkbox where you have multiple options to choose. For example, your favorite subject. So the favorite subject need not be one, it can be multiple. So the user is basically given a choice to enter multiple values. In such a case, we cannot use the method called as get parameter alone, because the get parameter always returns a single value for a particular parameter. In such a case, we can go ahead and use the method called as get parameter values, where it returns an array of all the values in the string format for the corresponding parameter name type. So it returns an array which contains the values which are associated with the parameter name called as name. So please make sure that you understand these three methods thoroughly, because with this you can easily get the data from the request which is coming from the client, and in the servlet you can take out the values and process it as per the business logic and give back the response. So it's very important that you understand that these servlet request methods, which are basically present inside the interface, has to be basically implemented by as per the logic that you basically want for the program. Now, coming to the response interface. So the servlet response interface enables a servlet to basically create a response for the client. So when we create a response, it is basically sent back to the client. As discussed in yesterday's class, if you do a simple system.out.println, the standard output is the screen, or the monitor of any laptop or any machine to where it is basically running. So if I do a system.out.println inside a servlet, the output will be shown on the console of the servlet itself, servlet running console machine, or rather on the server. It will not be displayed on the client side. So in order to display the output or the response to the client side, we have to make sure that we open a channel which basically takes the takes the response and sends it back to the client. So to achieve this, inside the servlet response interface, we have the method called as getWriter. Now, this method will basically return an object of print writer type. This print writer is used to write the character data to the response. In case, for any reason, if the um, is if the output channel is not being basically opened up, because of the network socket issue, it will basically throw an illegal state exception. Second important method here is, while sending the response, we have to tell very clearly the HTTP protocol what is the content type, and you can optionally tell what is the content length also. So set content type, you can tell what is the content type for that particular response, whether it is a simple text HTML file, Or is it an audio file, a video file, an image file, or any multimedia specific type? This you can clearly specify inside your method called as set content type. Same way, you can also specify set content length for the response to the particular sites. So these methods are really important when you want to create a servlet response method, okay, starting from the server to the client. Now let's see a simple example. First, I'll explain it through the PPT and then I'll take you through the Eclipse and I will run and elaborate the program. So let us have a simple HTML file. The name of the HTML file here I have given as postparameters.html. Now, as you can see here, it starts with the HTML tag followed by the body. Inside the body, I have the center tag and a form. So I am creating a form inside the HTML where the name of the form is basically given as form1. Here, the name of the method is equal to get. Okay, so as I told, if you recollect yesterday, there are two types of methods which can basically supported inside an HTTP packet. So either it can be a get method or it can be a post method. So if you take the method get, okay, and then you are clearly telling when the user presses the submit button inside this particular form, your request packet should go to the URL given as http colon slash slash localhost, means the server where your servlet will be running, where your web server is running. Inside the web server, the servlet will be running. So in this case, both my client and the server is my same machine. I don't have a remote machine to test. So both of them are the same machine. Hence, I can use the domain name called as localhost. Instead of localhost, you can also type the loopback IP address, which is 127.0.0.1. I repeat, you can also give the loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1 followed by the port number. Now, in your system, there can be multiple applications which can be running. Every unique process is identified by a combination of the port number and the IP address. So these two combination uniquely identifies every application which is running on a particular server. Hence, we have to give the server name, that is localhost, followed by the port number. Then comes the name of the project. Okay, so in this case the name of the project was post parameters, and the name of the servlet in this particular case is para. So this completely forms your URL. Okay, uniform resource locator, to find out where this particular request has to go. Now, in case if it is not your local machine where it is running and it is on a remote machine, say on your friend's machine it is working, and you want to try out one on your system and one on your friend's system, then you have to know the IP address of your friend, and both the two machines should be connected via internet. So you can either use a direct wired connection if it is next to each other, or you can use a Wi-Fi connection, okay, or any kind of networking strategy you can use, and make sure that both the two machines are basically internet connected. In such a case, you have to give the IP address of your friend's machine instead of the local host. And you can find out the IP address by typing ipconfig, okay, on your on the command prompt of your friend's machine, and you can check out. That's why you can see when you type www.google.com, it basically goes to the IP address of the machine where the Google has basically hosted its web server. Now, Google is the domain name which is basically mapped to the corresponding IP address. And make sure the same port number 8080 is the one where your servlet is also running. Now, in your web server, if it is running on a different port number, let us assume 8085, 8089, or any other port number, then the same port number should be updated even in your action part. I hope I have made it clear. These three parameters, the name, first one is the form, the name attribute, then the method, which can be either post or get. If it is get, then inside the servlet, you should implement the method do get. If it is post here, then inside the servlet, you should implement the method do post. And the third one is the action method. Now comes the table part of it. Under the table part of it, you have basically the different ways to specify the rows and the columns. So TR represents the row. In the first row, I have two columns. The first column is a label called as employee, which is written in bold format. Okay. And the second one is an input type, which is a text box element. I repeat, it's an input of type text box where the name is given as E. You can write some any other name followed by the size is given as 25. That means the entire size of the text box will be 25, and initially the value is basically empty. Moving on, in the second row, we will have again one more label called as phone. Okay, its input type is also text box and the name is P and the size is 25 and the value is initially empty. Followed by you are closing the columns and the table, and there is one more input type which is submit, and what is written on top of that button is a submit button. So I would like to show you, if you run this particular application, your UI will basically look something like this. So you can basically see here we have the employee and the phone number, where employee is a text corresponding to the text box, phone corresponding to the phone number. We have a submit button where the submit will be basically given. See the IP address HTTP local URL HTTP localhost 8080, the name of the project, okay, and followed by the name of the servlet will basically go when you press the submit button. Now, if you see the corresponding servlet code, okay, so the name of the servlet we have used here is post parameters servlet.java. We are importing java x.servlet because I am extending the generic servlet. You can also extend http servlet. Inside this, I have the method called as service, which takes two parameters. One is the request and the other one is the response. Inside the service, I am basically opening a channel called as print writer from the response object using the method called as get writer. So you can see here we have response.getWriter is equal to, which gets stored inside the print writer. Now, request.getParameter names will return you basically an enum of all the parameters which are basically present inside your form. So in this case, if you see, only two parameters are present. Okay, one is the name and the other one is the phone number. So here, what we will do is, once the enumeration is available, we will use a while loop to basically go through the elements of the enumeration. So if you recollect, in the collection topic, we have studied about the iterators, how to use the iterators to go through the collection elements. Same way, here using the enum data type, we are using the element called as enumeration, and we use the method has more elements to check if the enumeration has still more elements. And if it is available, you have to take the next element using the method next element, which is available for the enumeration type. The return type of every element is a string, and hence I use pw.print to print the name of that particular element followed by equal to sign. In the next line, again from the request object, I use the method called as getParameter followed by the name of that particular parameter. It will return the value, and now the value will basically get printed. So if you run this particular code, the first thing it will show is name followed by what name we have typed. Second round of the while loop, it will basically show phone number followed by what is the phone number the user has basically typed. Once the while loop is done, third time it will come and check there is no further element in the enumeration. It will come out of the while loop and it will basically close the channel. So if you run this particular program, you can basically see the output in this particular way. So what you have to do is we have to give localhost post parameters dot html, because this is an HTML page. When I press the submit button by giving the name of the employee and the phone number inside the text box and press the submit button, you can see that the URL gets changed. Okay, why does this URL get changed here? Because we have used the get parameter, it will get added as a part of your URL. So you can see here E is the name of the element for the employee name and P was the name of the element for the phone number. So both the two things get populated with the values. Okay, it will go to the server. Okay, on the server it will hook to the servlet called as post parameter servlet, which we have just now seen, post parameters servlet. Okay, in the action part we have written it as para. So this post parameter servlet is the actual name of the servlet, where the shorthand name for the same is given as para. Okay, so there is a one-to-one mapping between the two, which is done inside the web.xml. I repeat, there is a one-to-one mapping, okay, which is written that instead of using the post parameter servlet, use the name para in your URL. So it makes the URL length relatively small and easy, okay, so that without mistakes we can do it. This mapping is done inside the web.xml, which is read by the deployment description by the servlet container of the Tomcat at runtime. Okay, so now when you press the submit button, as we can see the URL changes, it goes to the server. Server takes out the values one by one from the enumeration and it basically adds it to the response using the print writer object, and this one will be shown on the client side. So the output of this will basically show you P is equal to what is the phone number and E is equal to what is the name of the employee that you have basically typed. Okay, now the same thing. So are you clear with this concept, what I have told here? You may be wondering that I have written here service, but here the method was given as get. It doesn't matter, because from the service internally the request is basically passed to do get or do post. So here, since the implementation is available inside the service method, directly the service method is invoked. Now, coming to the second part using the HTTP servlet. So you can see here javax.servlet.http package can be used exclusively when you are giving HTTP request and HTTP response. So the only naming convention is changing, and based on that, the name of the files are also basically changing. Hence, you have, instead of servlet request, you will have HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response, okay, which will enable the servlets to read the data from the HTTP request and write the data to the HTTP response correspondingly. Also, we have the concept called as HTTP session, which we will see in the next class. Okay, so now if you see here, let me explain the same thing now with a program. So I'm going to basically share the Eclipse. So as explained yesterday, I have Eclipse where my JDK is installed and the Tomcat server is a zip file which I have basically unzipped and kept at a specific location on my particular system. Okay, now let's see a simple program. Okay, what exactly I am expecting from this particular program. So if you see here, I will show you the output, what I am expecting, and based on that, I will tell you. So this is the This is a simple form. If you see here, it's a simple form where I have the attribute called as employee. It's a text box where I write the name of the employee. Okay. Second thing is phone number. Let me just write the phone number. Then gender. Let us assume I like both Java language and C++. My favorite color is blue. And let me type the password. Since I have given password as the element type, you can see that it is in a decrypted format. Now, when I press the submit button, okay, it should basically go to the server. You can see the URL has changed. Okay, the URL has changed. Please note that all the values of the parameters are going through the URL. Okay, it will go to the server and you can see the response where whatever I have typed has basically come back to the client side. Name is equal to Vandana, phone number, gender, what are the two subjects which I'm liking, then the color and followed by the password. So this simple program will illustrate the complete flow of how the request is going from the client to the server and again back from the server to the client. So are you clear what is the expected output? So now going to the Eclipse and I'll explain the code. So I have created, as told yesterday, a simple dynamic web project. Okay, is created. So the structure of the dynamic web project, you can see we have a folder called as a Java resource. Okay, under that I have SRC and I have created a package called as com.nhc and inside that I have written my servlet program. Coming to the web content folder, I have webinf where I have the web.xml and followed by that inside the web content, I have written something called as the web form.html. So let's see inside the web content, I have web.xml. So in the web.xml, in yesterday's class, I have told you it's a simple XML file which is read by the Tomcat web container to basically understand the deployment description. So here you can see the welcome file list. Under this, I have a welcome file and which is welcome form.html. So this is the landing page. Okay. So when your application is running, when you right click and run it, this is the first page which will be basically given or shown to the client. I repeat, when you run this project, this is the first page which will be basically given to the client or shown to the client. So we typically call it as a welcome page or the landing page. In this case, the name of the file is welcome form.html, which is present inside the folder called as the web content folder. Now, coming to the code part of it, if you see, I have a simple HTML file with HTML tag. Inside the header, I have the title called as Welcome to Servlet Programming. Okay, then followed by the name of the form, which is form 1. The name of the method used here is the get method. Okay, and then the action. The action is localhost port number. Servlet program is the name of the project. The name of the servlet is servlet test. Now I am constructing a table where the first row, okay, first column is employee and it is a text box with the name called as name. Second one is a phone number, which is again a text box with the phone. Third one is a gender, which is of radio button type. Hence, the input type will become as radio and the name is equal to gender and the value are male and female. And by default, you can keep the male as checked with the attribute called as checked. Next, we have the subjects. Under the subjects, we have the checkbox. Okay, the checkbox with two attributes. One is Java language and the other one is the C++ language. And the last attribute is color, which is of multiple choice. Hence, it's a select option. The name of the element is color with the three options, which is red, green, and blue. At the end, we have the password where the type is equal to password. Since the type is given as password, instead of numbers, it is shown as a dot in a decrypted format. Last but not the least, the very important is the input type called as submit, on which it is written as submit keyword. So this is a simple HTML page. Anybody who is comfortable with HTML can straight away write it. Now coming to the servlet part. So I have written the servlet. Then servlet extends from HTTP servlet. Okay, in the URL mapping, the name given is servlet test is the name which is being given. Now, since inside the HTML form, it is get method, I am implementing here, which is the do get method. Had it been post, then I must implement the do post method. Okay, so now let's see what is happening. The do get method takes two attributes. One is the request and the other one is the response. I repeat, it takes two attributes. One is the request and the other one is the response. So you can see here print writer PW is equal to response.getWriter. I am telling that the content that I am going to send back to the client is a simple text or an HTML. From the request, I take out all the parameter names in the form of an enumeration. I use a while loop to go through this enumeration one by one, and I am taking out the next element name and the next parameter value, which is getting printed on the print writer object. And with this, I am basically closing the print writer. So because of this, when you run this particular project, by giving run as run on server, okay, it will basically ask you the configurations as we have done yesterday. You need to run it completely and you can basically see the output of the program as we have basically discussed in yesterday's class. Okay, so the output of this particular program you can basically see by giving the Yeah, so the output of this particular program, you can basically take out, and I would like to reiterate the output. So based upon what you have basically given, okay, client side input, okay, let us assume I have given only C++ and it is red and password is something else, and it will basically change and give you the output. So this is one of the fundamental programs that you can learn inside the servlet programming. Now, let's see one more program to make this concept much more clear. So sharing my Eclipse, sharing my um, yeah. So this is yet another project. Okay. So I have here a simple menu where I have different types of colors. Depending upon what color I am pressing and I'm pressing submit button, the background of the color basically changes. So if you understand this concept of request and reply, you can see here the form is a simple form with only one element. When you press the submit button, it basically goes to the server. The server takes out the color which is chosen, which is blue in color, and it constructs a new response, which is a simple HTML page with the background blue in color, and it basically renders it or shows it back to the client. I repeat this in the phenomena. We have, I'm choosing, I press the submit button, the basically control goes to the server. The server basically takes out the value, and based upon what value is selected, it constructs a response, which is a simple HTML page where the background color is given as green in color. So let me share the code and try to explain you how exactly it is working. Again, we will create a simple dynamic web project. Okay, the name of the project in this case is given as color servlet dot um, yeah, it is given as color servlet project. So again, it has a folder called as Java resource, which is of SRC type. And we have something called as the web content. Inside the web content, I have a page called as web.xml, inside which the landing page or the welcome page is color.html. If you open the color.html, it's a simple form. You can see here the name of the form. Method this time I have used is post so that I can explain you. Last time we used get. So this time I'll put the implementation inside the servlet in the method called as do post. This is the name of the project and this is the name of the servlet. We have the different type of select elements which are present here. Okay, color, we have red, green, blue, pink, and finally we have an input type which is called as submit. Now, if you see the code inside the SRC folder, I have created the servlet called as color get servlet. It extends the HTTP servlet. And now I have do get method where I have not done anything. And now the important part to be concentrated is the do post method. Inside the do post, we have two parameters as with the do get. One is the request and one is the response. I am basically opening request.get parameter color. So I'm taking out what is the value which the user has selected for the color attribute. I got it inside the color. Now I start constructing the response by setting the content type as text or HTML. I create a print writer. Now very, very important. Please observe here using the channel, the response channel, I'm constructing a new HTML page. Inside this HTML page, I'm telling the body style, okay, the background color to be the color which the user has selected, and the selected color is what is the selected color. I'm basically printing. I'm closing the HTML tag. So the takeaway from this program is you can write anything inside the print writer in a string format. So if you want to construct a new HTML page also, it's very easy. All you have to do is to just write it inside the print writer object in the format of a string. So if you see here, we have the body tag and I'm telling the style element called as background color with the color which is basically given, and I'm telling it should be of bold format. So whatever you want to write like an HTML, everything you can write it as a string format inside the print writer object using the println method. So the same HTML page will be rendered, will be showed on the client side. Okay, so this serves the purpose. So are you able to understand from the client side how the request is going to the server, and on the server side either inside a post method or a get method you are able to take out and construct a new response. Okay, by using the print writer channel you are writing everything and sending back to the client. Okay, so I think I have made the concept of request and response clear in this session. So please try out certain hands out material so that you can make the concept clear. Try out these simple programs where you make a simple form, send it to the server and give back the response. Okay, so the remaining things, remaining topics, we will basically continue in the next class. Thank you.